God morgon där ute. Varmt välkomna till Noli Week. Jag är så glad att ha dig med oss denna morgon. Mitt namn är Michel Wester. Jag är vd och grundare på Noli och det är jag som kommer guida oss genom den här veckan som vi har tillsammans. För er som inte vet vad vi på Noli gör sedan tidigare vill jag bara passa på att nämna några korta ord. För det här med lärande, det är verkligen vår stora passion. Vi har utvecklat ett digitalt verktyg för att möjliggöra för alla er där ute som jobbar med utbildningar att erbjuda personliga lärresor för era deltagare med ett stöd före, mellan och efter era träffar. Optimalt för era ledarprogram men också onboardingen. Där vi inte bara ser till att stötta era nyanställda utan också cheferna så att de i rätt tid får rätt information och rätt stöd. Ett perfekt komplement till ert existerande LMS där vi verkligen vill se till att våra ledarinsatser och vår onboarding får ny och mer effekt. Men nu till varför vi är här idag. Tredje upplagan utav Noli Week. Det här känns så jäkla roligt måste jag erkänna. Och vi slår rekord i antalet deltagare. Just nu så kan det vara så att det är 1000 personer som sitter runt om i Sverige för att ta sitt lärande till nästa nivå. Tänk vilken potential vi har i att kunna göra saker annorlunda för alla som jobbar med lärande. Och den här veckan, den är till för er. För att ni ska kunna ta ert lärande till nästa nivå. Ni som dagligen kämpar med att alla andra ska kunna lära sig nytt och lära sig bättre. Vi vill ge er små enkla verktyg. Små verktyg som vi tror kan göra stor effekt för väldigt många. Och tänk på det. Om vi alla 1000 börjar göra just små saker annorlunda. Tänk vilken potential vi kan ha. Och med mig under den här veckan så har jag ett fantastiskt startfält för att bygga upp det. Lyssna bara till Anna Gullstrand, Rebecka Thulin från Handelsbanken, Caroline Lonudd från Chefsakademin, Patrik Ågren från Postnord och sist, men absolut inte minst, doktorina Weinbauer-Heiden från The Institute of Transfer Effectiveness. Jag är så glad att ha er med. Jag är så glad att ni vill göra det här tillsammans med oss. Jag vill också passa på att rikta ett stort varmt tack till hela Noli-teamet. Tack för att ni gör det här möjligt. Tack för den hjälteinsats som ni har gjort den senaste tiden. Och ett sista, men igen, absolut inte det minsta. Tack till alla er där ute. Alla ni som är med, för det är ni som verkligen gör det här eventet möjligt. Det är ni som gör Noli Week till någonting riktigt häftigt och någonting riktigt värdefullt. Tack. Er som inte har varit med på Noli Week sedan tidigare så vill jag också bara lite kort nämna hur upplägget ser ut. Vi kommer nu ha en vecka sprängfylld av lärande där vi varje morgon mellan 8 till 9 får ta del av en ämnesexpert som delar med oss av bra, enkla tips och inspiration på hur vi kan ta vårt lärande till nästa nivå. Någonstans mellan 8:40, kanske 8:45 så kommer vi öppna upp för frågor. Och då kommer det gå till så att jag kommer få frågor från mina 2 fantastiska kollegor, Julia och Ellen, som just nu sitter i våran chatt. Så fort som ni har några frågor eller några funderingar, skriv dem direkt i chatten. Så ska jag göra mitt bästa sen för att fånga upp dem och idag ställa dem till Anna i slutet av sessionen. När klockan sen slår 9 så kommer vi öppna upp breakout rooms så att ni också får lära känna andra deltagare under Noli Week. Diskutera vad du tar med dig från dagens session och vad du kan göra annorlunda utifrån de verktyg och inspiration som du har fått. Men nu till varför vi är här idag. Ingen mindre än Anna Gullstrand. Och hon kommer att genomföra sin session på engelska. Så från och med nu så kommer jag hoppa över till engelska istället. Anna is deeply passionate about leadership and digitization. Throughout her entire career, Anna's been focusing on helping organizations utilize the latest trends within digitizations and help them understand how they can utilize these tactics not only to help and support their employees, not only to grow their company, but also to support our society in large. For me, and I'm quite sure for a lot of you out there as well, Anna is a big inspiration on LinkedIn. She often shares a lot of great tips when it comes to leadership and learning. And today we get to listen to how our brains really work and how we can utilize this in a learning environment. She often also talks about how we're really creating engaging sessions where we make sure that the knowledge, theories, and modules that we introduce are being stuck to the participants. And she's always doing this with a focus on research and how things are really, really working. Today, Anna is Chief of People and Culture at Mentimeter. She has been named the SaaS Leader of the Year in 2022. She's been named as one of the future female leaders, not once, but 4 times. She's also the author of the HR Book of the Year in 2020, Facilitate. It's with a big warm welcome that I welcome up Anna Gullstrand to the Knowly Week stage. Big welcome.
Thank you. So super exciting to start the week here with you all.
And I'm
So
super
should I
excited
just
to have you.
go for?
I'm so glad to have you on board, and I'm gonna leave the stage to you. I won't take up any more of your time. I am super curious to listen in, so thank you so much, and the stage is yours.
Thank you. Okay, hello everyone. So happy to have you here. So we're going to talk about learning that sticks. So basically how to build an engaging learning session. And everything that I will talk about today is also based on the latest neuroscience, which I'm super excited about. And I actually would like you to join my Mentimeter this morning. So let's start here before I introduce myself further. So if you just take a photo of the QR code, or you go to menti.com and put these numbers in, and then I will have you in my session. And I have a lot of interaction to do with you. So please join, and then you will get the best learning experience today. And if you didn't have time for the QR code, you can always go to menti.com and use the numbers. Okay, so first of all, I'm super excited, like this guy, super excited to be here. I guess today I want to highlight extra that 4 years ago I went on a learning experience, which was the foundation of neuro leadership for the Neuro Leadership Institute in the US. And that was a formative experience for me when I learned, it's a 6-month course, and I learned a lot about our brain and how it works in the learning environment. And since then, I've been using these theories at Mentimeter because we are building a lot of learning, of course, in-house and also actually in building a learning culture at Mentimeter. So that is what I'm going to share with you today. It's also extra exciting because we have seen in our own research internally that a lot of people use Mentimeter for their own learning in-house. So I think like this exciting complement you have tools as Knowly provides, and then you have Mentimeter, and then you have your LMS and so on, and we can see that that's really how people are doing it nowadays to make it exciting and engaging. So this is why I wanted you to join my Menti. So please share with me, if you think about a teacher that meant something for you, what was their name? Let's start there and see if we can get some names. Here we have some coming in. Ingrid, Anita, Kerstin, Lars. I can see the generation here. Göran, yes. A storyteller, Morgan. Interesting. And if you haven't yet joined the Mentimeter, please do, so you can put in your name of this teacher. Oh, look at this. A lot of names. Okay, so if you think about this person, like the memories of this person, what do you think about? Why is this person special for you? Why is Lasse special? Hans, Ingrid, Sonja, Monica. What did they do? Wow, look at this. It's so cool. Okay, we're going to go back to this, but just very interesting that everyone remembers the name of that teacher. I mean, imagine all the people you met in your life and you still remember that teacher that was something extra for you. And I think that tells us a lot about the power of learning and growth. And when you feel really like engaged and taken care of in the learning experience. So let's go back to this. Thank you, everyone. So today, the purpose of this session is to create impactful learning, of course, and you have a lot of content that you want to convey, but of course, the whole point is that that message is getting across, and also that people remember it. And the session today is not about short-term memory, it's about long-term memory. So how can we make sure that whatever you are trying to convey is getting into people's brains so they can use it for their whole life, basically. And to be able to do this, we are going to understand our brain in a learning context. We're going to talk about how you can work with building blocks and to grab attention. And we're also going to talk about the power of reflection and senses and emotions. And in the end, or during the session, you will get 12 concrete advices that you can bring directly to your session. And how we will learn then. So, of course, this is like a bit meta. It's a webinar about learning. So we really need to prove ourselves here. So, of course, we're going to use a lot of interaction when we are learning. Of course, we're going to use reflection and thinking ourselves. And of course, we're going to use emotions also when we're learning. First, I also want to make a statement, and that is that for me, learning is everywhere. Of course, we in this room think about learning maybe at university or education, or we think about learning like a leadership program or an internal training. But I would say that learning is everywhere, because if you imagine all the things at your company or organization every week that is happening, that we want people to understand and bring into their daily job. It can be like new products or strategies or a new partnership or a new way of working or organizational change or everything that's going on in the company or organization. The whole point is that we want people to understand it and embody the knowledge so they can use it. So as I see it, the need for immersive learning experiences, it's everywhere. And I hope that you will use whatever we talk about today, not only in your trainings or in your lectures, but also when you're doing other things at work, in your meetings or in your workshops. And if we go back to when we think about learning, I think our challenge or our problem is that this is how we're used to learn things. So I'm 41, and when I went to Uppsala University, this was how it looked. So sitting 4 hours in a quite stiff environment, looking at someone on a stage that was talking. At that time it was overhead, now it's PowerPoint. But anyway, it was just like this idea of mass communication, and that I will learn if I listen to this person and all the things that person is like telling me. So it's like an expert on stage, an authority, and of course the proof that I learned something was the exam. So that was really like the whole idea, the whole purpose of the session was to learn for the exam and not to learn for life. And I think this is what we need to challenge everyone that's in this room today. And I would like to understand also, in your context today, what are the biggest challenges to learning and training in the role you have and in your organization? So please go into Menti again, and then you write a short sentence about what is your main challenge. Okay, time. Yes, for sure. So there's a lot to learn and no time to prioritize learning. Of course, I have the same challenge as well. There are so many things we want to talk with everyone about. So when do we prioritize learning? Time, the effect of the training, retainment of knowledge, of course, that you want some kind of behavioral change after the education. The time to read, there's a lot of time here, time. The old structures to use what I learned, the mindset, motivation, exactly. The culture, do you have a learning culture or not? That money is the focus. Engagement for participants is hard. To get the right resources, to set results long term. Exactly. Too much information, too little time. I think this is super interesting. And if I just like collected beforehand, what I thought the challenges we have today is like learning is down prioritized in some organizations and people do not have time. And then people learn at the session, but maybe they never use what they learned or they forget it. And also a lot of trainings are uninteresting, and it's hard to make a training relevant for everyone. And often it gets like not in touch with reality. People zoom out, they multitask, they're disconnecting. I think we can see that a lot in the hybrid world, that we don't really know where we have our learners. Like, are they checking their email or are they doing something else? When camera is off, are they like doing their laundry? What is going on? And also some learning experience are made to just tick a box or get the certificate. And that's what people go for. And they don't really like engage in the session. It's also hard to accommodate for different learning styles. And we have maybe reduced training budgets. And of course, the death by content overload, too many bullet points, monotony, and no interaction. So what I actually can promise is that what we are going to talk about today will help you to fight all this stuff. So let's see. So let's start by understanding the brain in a learning context. So first of all, what we need to remember when we do a learning session is that our brain is shaped by millions of years living in tribes. So if you just think about it, Homo sapiens, we've been around for 200,000 years, something, but before that, 4 million years of just like tribing and being very, very dependent on the small social community to survive. And this has impacted our brain a lot. So basically, we are extremely good at sensing if we are in a safe space or not. And how we need to use this in a learning session is to reward our social needs. So basically, the social needs that Neuroleadership Institute used to talk about is the SCARF model. So basically, first of all, status, that everyone in your learning session, they want to feel important. They want to feel seen and they want to feel heard. Certainty, of course, they want to understand what's going to happen so they can like plan for themselves. They want also to be able to impact, because our need for autonomy is super high. Also, they want to feel part of the group, relatedness, togetherness, and feel safe with other learners. And also fairness, they want to be treated fairly. And what Neuroleadership Institute has shown is that these needs are hardwired into our brain. So we all have these needs. And what does it mean then? It means that if we reward these needs, then we actually we get a lot of positive things in the learning context, because people stay curious, they have access to their full brain capacity. But if you somehow feel a social threat, then people go into fight or flight mode. And that can actually be why people are zoning out from your session, because they don't feel fully comfortable. So first of all, as learning designers, we need to create a safe social space. So that's number one. The other thing is that neuroscientists have discovered that the level of activation of a brain region that's called hippocampus, it plays a significant role in whether people can recall what they learned. So the rest of the session today is going to be about this, like how can we make sure that we activate hippocampus? And what is the magic recipe here is that if you have the perfect amount of attention, generation, emotion, and spacing, then the learners will engage. They will engage hippocampus, and then you actually get this like deep circuits that is needed for if you want to create long-term memory. And this session is based on a lot of meta studies, and I'm not going to go through like the proofs in this session, but I want you to know that behind everything I'm saying, there is a meta study or an analysis pointing on this to this direction. So it's not anything that I'm making up for you. So let's start with grabbing and keeping attention. So as we said, learning takes place when we activate hippocampus. And this occurs when we focus on one topic without distractions. So that's number one. But then, for how many minutes are you expecting your participants to focus and pay attention when you have a training or lecture? If you think about how you did your latest training, how much time do you expect people to focus? Please answer. Is it 0 to 10 minutes or 11 to 20? 21 to 40 or more than 40 minutes. Let's see. You can also think about your ordinary meeting or when someone is talking internally or having maybe a strategy presentation or something like that. Okay, let's vote. Please go into the Menti and vote so I get some more people in here. Thank you. Okay, so what do we have here? It seems quite all over the place, actually. So there are some people who are doing small blocks, 0 to 10 minutes, and then we have some bigger blocks, but also we have a lot of sessions or parts of sessions that are more than 21 minutes and also more than 40 minutes. So it seems like mostly here, actually. So if we look at the research, it says that people can't concentrate or actually have attention more than 20 minutes. So we need basically to make every part of our training or the whole training only 20 minutes. And the interesting part here, I think, is that they made a lot of research and it doesn't really matter how engaging the speaker is. So, TED Talks, for example, they are 17 minutes. It's by design, because even if the speaker is super engaging, we can't really hold our focus and attention for more than 20 minutes. And also, why is that? It's because our brain, basically, if there's too much certainty, if like it's a pattern, it's repeatable, it's something like monotony, then we are actually losing our attention. And that is super important for us as learners to work with. The other thing that is super clear in research is that multitasking and getting distracted are one of learning's worst enemies. So whatever you do when you plan a learning session, make sure that you keep distractions away. And I think, as I see it, then my first, what I usually try to do, because of this attention thing, you need to grab someone's attention and then you need to hold attention, is to actually mix stuff up and not do things as you always do it. So basically start in an other way when you start your session, or tell a story, or do a check-in, or surprise people, or do an energizer, do something that grabs people's attention in the start of your session. And also you need to then do it again, maybe after 20 minutes, again after 40 minutes, again after 60 minutes. So work with breaking this monotony, basically. Because when certainty is too high, we lose interest. So this example, I just started at one of our leadership meetings with the question who people are grateful for, to just start, grab people's attention and start the session in another way. One other things that I know that you're all already doing probably, but that is super important, is to set up rules for learning. So basically, I usually just ask this question in the beginning of a session. What mindset and behavior do we want to encourage to reach the learning outcomes of this session? And then we use the collective intelligence of the group to form these rules for the session. And then you, as a learning designer, you don't need to tell people how they should behave. Instead, they are actually creating this list together. Then another interesting concept is the power of night school. So basically, it's proven in research that our knowledge gets deeper when we are sleeping. So basically, we integrate new and old information during our sleep. And I think this is super interesting, that basically our memories grow by time. And how we need to think about this as learning experts is that we need to use spacing. So it's better to have a 1 hour session, wait a few days, and have another session on 1 hour instead of having a crammed 2 hour session. Or it's better to have a leadership education that is maybe 4 occasions instead of 2 days very intense, because we grow our memories by time. And here I actually put something in because I thought it was so interesting. So basically, there's just this very simple research made about mathematics, and there were 2 test groups. One that got 10 problems of the same kind at one occasion, and then it was one other that got first 5 problems and then waited 7 days and then got 5 problems. And you can see then how different the proportion of correct answers in the test was. So basically, the group that got 2 learning sessions had a much better recollection of the content. Okay, next question then. When do you get your best ideas or solve problems? Is it at lunch, on a walk, in the shower, when you're exercising, maybe in meetings or workshops, when you're commuting in front of the computer, or when you are relaxing? So when do you get your best ideas or solve problems? If you're not yet in my Mentimeter, please join with the QR code so you can also engage in the session. And then we will see. Okay, so what do we have? We have on a walk, in the shower. It's a classic. We have when exercising, yeah, when relaxing. Okay, we don't have anything in a meeting, or okay, some meetings or workshops, some in front of the computer. Okay, but mostly actually on the walk, in the shower, when exercising, and when relaxing. So first of all, you prove you prove that the research is right. So basically, research tells us that we need to let our brain relax. And the reason is that there's a lot of knowledge inside our full brain, but all of that knowledge is considered weak signals. So when we are really trying to solve a problem, we're thinking hard, then we are in the prefrontal cortex. But then these weak signals are not actually being heard by prefrontal cortex. So it's when we let our brain relax where we actually we can take in those weak channels, and then the brain helps us with all this association power to solve the problem or to be creative. So as I see it, this is connected to spacing, why we need to space out the learning sessions, but it's also connected to mixing it up. So maybe you let people to go for a walk in the middle of your training, or you actually build in meditation as one of the things you're doing with your participants. Okay, Next thing, use building blocks to create your training. So as I said, if you only can hold attention for 20 minutes, then you need to build your training around small blocks that are maybe 5, 10 to 20 minutes. And then each block, you mix talking maybe for one block, listening one block, reflecting one block, discussing, giving input, and so on. So you mix different things to enhance the learning experience. And then, of course, you can also, if it's a physical workshop, you can use the room or use different senses, use people's body and so on. So you make sure that you keep the attention. Because if you keep attention, focus, hippocampus is active, and then long-term memory will go up. So when I plan a learning session, this is how it can look. So I do a small thing, connect with the group, then maybe a check-in, then some kind of introduction to align on the purpose of the session. Then the small first theory, it may be 10 minutes about theory, a research, a model, a framework, some knowledge. And then maybe you do a 10-minute self-reflection. Someone is like, people are writing by themselves. Then you go back to theory and build on it. Then you do a group discussion, maybe for 10, 15 minutes. Then you do a summary, and then you do a checkout. So basically, the amount you spend on just telling people in a session is maybe only 20-25% of the time. And the rest of the time is actually helping people to engage with the content to make sure that they remember it. So, summary, what we can do as learning designers. We can set up clear rules for our sessions. We can reduce distractions and avoid multitasking. We can grab people's attention, and we need to do it again and again and again. We can use these time blocks to make sure that we're keeping focus and attention. And we can also use spacing and break up our learning sessions. Okay, that was half of the brain stuff. So now we'll go into the second half. And that is the power of reflection and senses and emotions. So what's this about? So research shows that we can't just absorb information passively. We must take an active, creative role if we are going to remember and go into long-term memory. And why is that? Because the hippocampus, it acts more like a web, like a spider web or internet actually, than a hard drive. So everything is basically connected. And this is what we need to use. And I think you can all relate to this, that if you have some kind of memory, it's usually quite, like a deep memory. So if you think about a birthday, maybe you have like this, like a lot of things that you remember or connecting to birthday, cake, the song, joy, waiting, disappointment, or some like emotions and feelings. If you think about learning, maybe you think about a specific professor you had, or this teacher that you had, or maybe being bullied or getting the exam, or like, so basically you have a lot of things in your brain all together. And basically we need to strengthen this web. And we do that when we actively create new thoughts or insights or like connections. And in Neuro Leadership Institute, they say that we generate something. So basically, we get this thicker and denser web of memories, and then we strengthen, and then we can use the memories again. And when I say memories, it's knowledge. So memories and knowledge are the same thing in this context. So we need to make people generate their own thoughts. So how do we do that? For example, we can do a poll to make participants think about their own belief or their opinion. We can ask questions, of course, being as a coach or a facilitator, so people connect the knowledge that we are talking about to their personal experiences. We can also have participants writing answers for themselves. So basically just asking questions and people can answer it. And we can also let people explain their ideas to other people in the group, because all of these activities basically make this web thicker. We can, for example, ask a question to generate insights. So first, we let people think. And second, we elaborate on the theory. So we did this 5 minutes ago when I asked you about when do you get your best ideas? And you answered me. And then after that, I presented the theory. So that's a way of making sure that you create insights and generate, that people generate their own thoughts connected to the content before you actually deliver the answer. How I use this a lot is that I present a model, like a leadership theory or something. So this is, for example, the stress management curve. And then we first let people reflect on it by like where are you in this model, or what does this model make you think, or do you have any examples of when this happened in reality? So we ask that kind of questions, and then we deepen the knowledge. We also know that the best actually way to deepen your knowledge is to teach others. So I think this is super interesting, and we are maybe not using it as much as we can. So you can actually teach something that you just learned, and that will help you remember more. So as I do it, I build into my sessions that just like you learn something new, and then maybe 1 hour later, you're going to teach what you learned to someone else in the session, or someone outside of the session, and it's super powerful. We can also help people to dream and visualize a desired stage. So where do they want to be? How do they want the future to look like, in relation, of course, to what we're trying to convey? And this is because the brain actually looks at future memories, or the brain do not understand that the future memory has not happened yet. So basically, when we plan or simulate a future event, it's like memory from the brain perspective, but for the future. So it's super powerful. One other powerful concept is to create social accountability. And that's basically that people tell other people what they're going to do with the information. So it's shown in research that if you tell others your intention or predictions about your behavior, then it will increase the chance that you will act on them. So how I do it usually is just like in the end of a session or in the middle, just like share with someone else how you will use this knowledge, or share with someone else your next step, or something like that. I think we will jump over this one because so we will have time. So basically, the last thing is the emotion part, which I think is super interesting. So emotion is super good for learning because it increases our attention to a given topic. And there's a clear link between emotion and the memory brain center. So basically, memory is enhanced because we have this amygdala that is close to hippocampus, so they interact, and we have this emotions in amygdala. And actually, both positive and negative emotion works to understand learning. But basically, if you get too strong emotions, that's the problem. Then actually, that will decrease memory because you're blocked and you will not actually get anything out of the session. So a high level of arousal will block attention and learning. This is, for example, why we don't want people to feel uncomfortable during a session, or that they are losing their face or anything like that, because that can actually ruin a whole session for those people. But what you can do is you can ask powerful questions like, how does this feel? You can connect to memories like a positive memory, like think about a time when or you can design for this like aha moments, or you can do something different with the participants, like a song, a play, or a poem, something that actually evokes emotions. And I think it's super powerful to just connect and make people reflect on how they're actually feeling, because then they connect the knowledge to a feeling. And also we know that if people are learning in a social context, it actually impacts all these 4 things. So the attention and focus goes up, because when you are in human interaction, you create focus. And then also you generate insights by talking to other people. Just the conversation is making this like web thicker. And then when you are with people, you are actually creating emotions automatically, because that does happen when we are with people. We are discussing and we have maybe different opinions and so on. And also the power of spacing. So if you have been doing something together, you can also, when you bump into that person later, you can also talk about what you learned. So there's a lot of good things with social learning, and we can do that both hybrid and remote and physically. So I think the summary here before we end is basically that you can generate these insights. You make the shift from content delivery to creating space for insight. And as I said, for me, a learning session is maybe 25% content and 75% working with the content. So that's like the mindset I think we need to have. You use the group You use learning by teaching. You can regulate arousal, so make sure that people are not feeling too much. And then you use positive emotions because that enhances creativity and collaboration. Okay, wrap up and summary. I have 1 minute, yes? Michelle? Yeah, he's saying yes. So, the purpose of this session was to create impactful learning experiences that makes your content stick. And as I see it, the most important takeaway is do less content and have more interaction. So reward the social needs, make sure to grab attention, use the building blocks smart so you're not like having more than 20 minutes in one block. Make people reflect, generate their own insights, connect to their reality so they really like strengthen this web. Make them connect to many different senses and also invite emotions to your session and unleash the power of learning in a group session. And I created this list of the very concrete advices, but this is also pin on image. So you can actually pin in your phone the one that you liked most or feel curious on or just like want to explore extra or do something with. So look in your phone, put a pin on the one that you will do something with. I think it is a pin on image. Yeah, then there's a pin, but on a very strange place. People are maybe too tired to pin. Okay. Create social accountability. Yeah, I think that one is super powerful. Just add that to any session and you will increase the chance that people are actually doing what you talked about. Mix it up. Use the night school, exactly. Space things out and don't cram everything into the same session. Let the brain relax. Yes, building blocks seems like many people could relate to. Use emotions in your sessions. Yes, the power of teaching. Great. A lot on mixing it up. Yes, please mix it up. Wow, now you're awake. Thank you very much. Okay, let's see. I think, of course, I'm curious to hear what you're going to use the session for, but that will be later in the discussion after the session. But my last question to you before we end: how do you feel right now? So interesting to hear about your emotions. Are you pumped, inspired, tired, stressed, confused, or curious for more? It's Monday morning. We have a whole work week in front of us, so let's hope you're somewhat in a good mood. Okay, we have some pumped people, we have some inspired people, we have people that are curious for more. That's nice. Cool. Thank you very much. But most importantly, thank yourself because you went up at 8 o'clock and listened to this Noli week start. And over to you, Michelle.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Anna. This was great. I loved every second of this. And especially for me, I love it when you talk about the learning blocks, because I think that has such a huge potential for us to think even more in how we can, divide our learning into smaller pieces, but it also makes it easier for us, just like you're mentioning, to space it. I mean, the more we can do that, the more it's easy for us to succeed with spacing. I think there's a huge potential for us to drive, both more engagement, but also, of course, a higher effect from the learning initiatives that we do. I love that. That was amazing. Thank you so much.
Yay!
And the chat has been running warm, so I hope you're stretched and ready for a lot of questions.
Yep.
Awesome. So we had a really good question from Katrin. She asked us about, what about different cultures? So she's running trainings all over the world, working with a lot of different cultures. Is there anything from research that we should think about or be aware of?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. Super relevant. So the scarf model, for example, that is actually things that are hardwired in our brain. So because like millions of years in tribes, it doesn't really matter like which culture we have been living in. We are basically hardwired the same in a way. But what I do think is that for example, status is one good example, that how you like perceive status is very different in different cultures. So of course you need to be a bit aware of what you're doing and how it impacts people's emotions. With that said, I usually spend time in the beginning, so to create certainty, to basically very like speak out, like what is this session about, what is the purpose, how will we do it step by step, why are we interacting with each other, why do I want you to talk with each other, and just maybe also some like this knowledge, for example, of the brain, that you're just saying that we know that if you talk to each other, actually you will the memory will be better. So that's why we're going to talk to each other. So you're explaining basically everything that might make people feel uncomfortable.
Cool, perfect. We have another question from Peter. When you talked about the hippocampus, you mentioned 4 words. One of them was generation. Could you elaborate some more on generation?
Yeah, so generation is the word that the Neuro Leadership Institute uses, but I use like reflection or generate insights or something like that. So basically, it's the process when we generate our own thoughts about something. So if someone tells me about the Second World War, then for me to be able to really understand and get it into my deeper memory, I need to generate my own thoughts about the Second World War. So basically that is generation. And the best trick here is to use, of course, questions, to ask powerful questions, to make people discuss with each other and so on. But also like different senses. That's why we're also like looking at videos or, mixing it up, because it's about this web that we need to make it thicker.
Yeah. Awesome. And to elaborate on that, Albertina had a question regarding spacing effect and how we're working on that. We know it's important for creating learning, but do we know that it's as important when we're dealing with problem solving? She's working a lot with workshops where they're supposed to solve problems together, and she mentioned that sometimes she's gotten the feeling that when they're using spacing, people forget what they worked on the last workshop. Do you have anything to mention on working with problem solving and spacing?
As I understood it, we don't know how powerful spacing is, but we know that it is powerful. And I would say that it goes both for training and workshops. So it's if we listen to the research, it's always better to break things apart. But of course, you need to spend a bit time to like recollect what did we do last time, where are we now in the process, and so on. But basically, the outcome will be higher, and also people will think about the problem during the whole week that are in between the 2 workshops. The brain will work for them in behind the scenes, basically. And I think, in Sweden at least, we say like, let's sleep on this when we're not ready to take a decision. So this is natural that we're doing this.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's super important for us to actually have these spacing effects. And I think we can, if that is a challenge, if we have a challenge of them remembering certain things, maybe we can use nudging theories in helping them be reminded of certain important activities in between these sessions. So you have an awareness of it in your everyday life, but you're not, how do you say, like, you're not actually actively working on it, but you're being reminded and you're aware of these thoughts, ideas that you're working on right now.
And I think that's why, for example, you mentioned in the introduction the before, during, after approach. It's the same thinking, that we need to like stretch out our learning experiences.
Yeah, and I think that's why I love the learning block so much. That's an awesome way to think of your learning in the session, but it goes just as well to think of it as a larger process. How do we work with learning blocks before? How do we space the activity so we start thinking about these challenges, these topics a week before? And I think just a thought of it is as important of maybe looking at a video, but quite often we're we're thinking content when we're thinking spacing, and spacing doesn't have to be content. It could be just like you're mentioning, it could be social interactions, it could be questions that are helping us to space.
Exactly. Just asking the question 1 week before will help people to start to actually solve or think about ideas before the session.
Exactly.
And
Generation.
this building block thing also, I would also encourage everyone to not only use it in trainings. I mean, use it for your meetings, for your company all hands, for whatever you're doing, because learning is everywhere. That's the whole thing, that we need to, everything that we're trying to convey in a meeting, that's also, we want people to learn it and to use it.
Exactly. And especially the last thing, we want them to use it. Same goes for learning. For learning to have an effect, we want them to use it. It's when you use it, we're getting the impact. We got one really interesting question from Claire, I think. In the context of social learning, have you seen any difference between social interactions when we do this in a physical classroom from when we do it in, well, a digital or virtual environment? Are there any learnings, pitfalls to avoid?
Yes, a lot. No, but I think that's why it's so powerful to go back to the theories, for example, the scarf model or those like theories about how the brain works. Because if you have that as your base, then you can design whatever learning experience, like a hybrid one or a remote one or a physical one. But you will need to do different things to reward these needs. So, for example, I think one great thing about the remote learning experience is that we are all much more equal. So basically, everyone has the same size, when we are in the session. So there's no, like, the power dynamics are more even out, which I think is a very good thing for trainings. But in a remote session, it's harder, but also more important to make people feel part of the space and this togetherness. So basically, like saying hello to everyone when they enter the room, and so on. Make people have this small chat. Make people like part of the session. And I know that a lot of organizations have a challenge with that people are not putting their camera on, for example. And I would say in a training session, you should really encourage that people lean in and are active and have their camera on, because we're also building connections here. And that's the whole point with the social learning, that we learn better when we build these connections. I would say in a room, you need to work a bit more with the, like, it's easier, I think, to help people, because you can see on their body language and how they're actually feeling, if they're sitting outside the group or inside the group. You can work with the room a bit more. So I think it's easier to catch people, I would say. So so you need to make sure to find a way to catch people also in the hybrid and the remote context.
Perfect. Thank you, Anna. I actually have a small suggestion, because you're mentioning the importance of having your camera on and the knowing of people actually being engaged. I have a small suggestion, a tip that I usually use in my trainings that I want to share here. So I think it is important for us to remind people to have their camera on, but to do that, I think we need to encourage them to also turn it off every now and then.
Yeah.
So what I usually do in my trainings, I have short moments where each participant gets to reflect on what they thought was important or what they take with themselves from the activity that we just did. It could be 2 minute reflection. What's one thing that you thought it was important? One thing that you can use in your everyday life. And when they do that, I tell them to shut off their camera. This is for you to spend time with yourself. So shut down your camera. When 2 minutes has passed, I tell them to turn it on. So it's a part of the design to tell people to turn the camera on, but I don't have to nag and tell them, please turn your camera on. It's a part of the design of the training. A small thing, but it can make a lot of...
Yeah, and I also think that it makes sense with these building blocks, that you have building blocks for self-reflection, for thinking, and then it's more naturally that you like go into your own space, basically.
Yeah. So another question, we got a great one from Vinny. Attention. Does that differ if we look at different age groups? Do we know anything about that?
No, I haven't read anything. What I do know is like that the attention and the multitasking and distraction, we need to put those together. So whatever you can do to avoid distraction will help with attention. And I think that is I mean, I can see I have one 7-year-old and one 10-year-old, and they have a lot of distractions all the time. They have their phone and iPad and all that, and a lot of like WhatsApp groups and so on. But I can also see, I mean, our brain has not changed that much just because we got the iPhone. The brain is still the same. And I think that is what we need to remember here, that we are not getting better at this. We have a 4 million-year-old brain on our head. We're not getting better.
No, exactly. And then, of course, it can differ on how much time an individual has spent on doing something. I mean, the more you practice on something, the better you'll get at it. But as you mentioned, the brain will be the same. But if you practice a lot on looking at instructional videos that are 2 minutes long, you become quite good at collecting information from instructional videos that are 2 minutes long. Like, that's how it works. One thing, we got a question from Olaf that I think was really great. What's the most common mistakes that you see people that are running trainings are doing? One pitfall that they should avoid?
Yeah. Too much content. I did it today also. I thought we were going to have time for some more reflections and so on. No. So I think that is always. So basically, as I said, like in a great training, I would say like less is more. So like maybe the content part is 25%, and then the rest you spend on deepening and make sure that people really understood and embodied that knowledge. And that I think is a challenge because because we as learners, we just want to give all this knowledge, you know, we're so like, oh, we want everyone to understand and know this. So we just cram our sessions with stuff. So I would say that one.
And how do we tackle it then? Because I mean, I'm aware of the challenge of putting in too much content, but I myself fall in that pitfall all the time. So like, how do we help ourselves remind us of the importance of limiting content?
No, but I think it's just like getting into practice, that you do your session, then you cut it with half, then you do it again, then you cut it with half. It's like good writers, like copywriters. You write a sentence and then you write it again and try to make it half as long, and then you write it again and try to make it half as long, and then you have the best sentence. It's like, and then maybe remind each other. If you have a team of learning designers at your job, like, or at your company, make sure that you remind yourself. Send over the session, ask for feedback, and then make sure that you help each other to what do you say, like kill your darlings.
Yeah, exactly. We had quite a few people saying that they left the session now, or they're right now curious. For me, that's maybe an interest of wanting to learn more. If I'm sitting here right now, I'm curious. I want to learn more. What would be your tip, your recommendation for me to start doing, to be able to learn more about effective learning or learning more about learning?
Yeah, so my go-to sources is you could actually like sign up for the Neuro Leadership Institute's materials and white papers, but they are behind the paywall. So if you want to get the like real deep studies and white papers, you need to pay. But if you Google AGES model, AGES, AGES learning model, then you will get a lot of inspiration on what we talked about today.
Awesome, perfect. What's your go-to tactic to learn more in your everyday life, Anna?
I mean, I think right now where I learn the most is actually on LinkedIn. So make sure to follow people that seems knowledgeable within their space, and that are good at content, and then basically read their content, because there's so much great stuff shared nowadays compared to a few years ago. So that is my go-to every day. I get a lot of like, also like, how should we like develop Mentimeter as a product, or the business development or strategy or whatever. I get a lot of input there.
Nice. I think that is extremely valuable last words. Anna, Thank you so much for this. This has been amazing. I've learned so much, and for me, two things that are really stuck, the learning blocks, thinking about learning as a process. We need to divide them into smaller blocks, help use different kind of, activities to space it all up. And then the other one, using the power of social learning. How can we engage even more? How can we utilize accountability in driving learning? And that's also something that Rebecca will be focusing on tomorrow, in tomorrow's session, how they've used accountability and collaborative learning in their leadership program. So make sure to tune in tomorrow morning at 8 to listen to Rebecca and how they designed their leadership program and really driving engagement and learning through accountability and social learning. Anna, thank you so much. I don't know, I don't have words to say how grateful I am for this. Thank you everyone that has been a part of this first morning. I really look forward to seeing you all tomorrow again. I'll see you all in the breakout rooms in just a few seconds. Have a great Monday and see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.